The following podcast is a mass media production.
Hi, I'm Josh Galindo.
And I'm Krystal Galindo. Welcome to the Galindo Rugrats and Renovations podcast.
A lifestyle podcast where we will offer our experience and expertise in building real, lasting wealth through renovating and flipping homes.
And the chaos that comes with balancing a family of 6, leaving nothing unsaid.
Follow our wild ride we call life and apply our lessons to your own journey.
Hey guys, it's not too late to be a sponsor of the show. If you're interested in getting your business in front of our listeners, please send us a direct message on our Going Galindo social channels.
All right, good morning. Josh Galindo here. We are recording another episode for Going Galindo Rugrats and Renovations. And today we have a special guest. I was on his podcast and I really enjoyed my time there. So we invited him over to be on ours. A little bit about this special guest is he's an active real estate investor and entrepreneur since 2002, focusing on the niche of distressed mortgage notes. Since 2008, he's purchased over $1 billion in distressed notes on residential and commercial properties all across the country. He's helped thousands of real estate investors and entrepreneurs create wealth through his debt buying tactics and classes, helping his students close thousands of deals. He also hosts the nationally syndicated radio and podcast Note Closers Show podcast. An avid sports fan, he spends his free time traveling, gardening, and making memories. He calls Austin, Texas his home, and his better half is Stephanie and their 4-legged kids. Great. So let's go ahead and welcome Scott Carson, a.k.a. the Note Guy. So I hope I did you justice there.
Great. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Thank you for the intro. Glad to be here, everybody. I need to get back out to Vegas. I used to spend almost every October in Vegas for like back-to-back conventions for like 5 years straight. October was just out there. And my liver is probably thanking me more now that I'm not.
What were the conventions about? Real estate stuff?
It was debt investing. We had like a noteworthy summit. We had a Association of Private Lenders conference. We had the fetish ball, which is always fun on Halloween out that neck of the woods at Hard Rock.
Was that at the Palms?
It was at the Palms once. Is at Hard Rock. Then they moved out to Red Rock. They bounced it all over because they screw stuff up. But Vegas is always one of my favorite markets.
Oh man, it's a great time. I love it out here. You know, I feel it. I wish I had a Vegas to go to, is what I tell people. I really do. You know, like when Chris and I are like, my wife Krystal and I are like, oh, let's go somewhere. You know, you show up. It doesn't have the customer service that we're used to here. Doesn't have the 24-hour access that we're used to here. And you can't get, you go to California hotels, $600 a night. You know, you could literally go to the Cosmo, have the best of everything for $160 on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's just crazy how spoiled we are here. So Scott, I love what you do. When I was on your podcast, I was itching to start asking you all the questions about you. Because I'd love to really get educated on what it is that I know what you do, but I'd love to understand how you do it. And then obviously for my listeners, there's 1,000 ways in real estate. When I first got into real estate, I'm going to just distract myself here. When I first got into real estate, the gentleman that taught me the game sat me at a table and said, here's what I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you there's a million ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
Have you heard that one?
Amen to that. Yeah.
Okay. And at the time, I had no clue what that meant. I thought it was just a really wild analogy, but that's what he did, and he was an expert in all facets of it, in development and buying distressed notes, which is where I learned about it from. Cash flowing assets. He's obviously in much bigger stuff. He was buying commercial buildings and so forth. But so I like to preach to everybody. There's a lot of different ways to make money. What I often see people do is they see me flipping homes, and they are ready to abandon what has been working so well for them and jump over and go, I want to do what you're doing. I want to flip homes. It's like, wait, but you're a successful real estate agent making, $500,000, $700,000, $1 million a year. Like if that's working for you, stay in that space. So anyway, hopefully today we could talk about something that can help us all make a little extra money, or another way that it can be done. So So Scott, I'm going to tell you what I think I know about your game, and then I'd love to hear you get into some detail. Long story short, you have a borrower that owes the bank $300,000. The house is worth $350,000. They haven't made payments in forever, or they make payments and they quit making payments and they start making payments. And then they file bankruptcy and they get out of bankruptcy. But the point is that they become a real nuisance to the bank, and the bank says, "I'm over this property, servicing this loan or owning this note. I'm going to sell it at a discount to somebody else to take over this headache." And then you can choose to do what you want with it, either continue to work with that borrower, pursue all your rights under the note and deed of trust, and foreclose, and then take the property and go. So you tell me, real life scenario, that's my hypothetical. What does it look like in real life?
That's pretty close. Most people think about note investors as somebody who's originating notes. They're doing owner financing or wraparound mortgages, and that's a small facet of what we do. I've done it for years, going back 17, 18 years now, and in the origination side, being a previous financial advisor and a mortgage broker back in the day. But since 2007, that's what I've basically focused on, is we deal directly with banks. We're not going after borrowers individually. That's a nightmare.
Sure, I could imagine.
Drama show. We don't want to be involved with that.
Did you ever do it?
We've done a little bit of that. Did you start out
that way or something?
Oh, I've been a fix and flipper, a rehabber, subject to deals, done just about everything. Had very similar mentor teach me all the different ways to make money. And then I was doing fix and flipping the rentals here in Austin, besides running a mortgage company. I was investing aside. And then when everything hit the fan in 2007, 2008, the mortgage industry, I was very fortunate to have some mentors say, "Listen, this is the time. You've been dabbling in the note space. With all this distressed debt, it's like the RTC days, the Resolution Trust Corporations, the savings and loan defaults that took place in the late 80s. That was just a huge amount of distressed debt that hit the market, and billions was made. A huge wealth transfer taking place." And so I said, okay, I'll do what I need to do. So I started dialing for dollars and started calling the same banks and lenders that I used to originate for to see what they had in their books, because they had all this distressed debt. And so that's what we did. We literally will get lists from banks on a monthly, quarterly basis of all their problem child, the problem borrowers, whether they're, they got equity or they're upside down their houses. We're getting lists. I'll give you a great example. Just made an offering on, we had a listing of 231 assets from a bank. Made an offer on 58 of them yesterday. Average bid we made on was about was 57 cents on the dollar of current market value. A lot of them hadn't been paid on in 3 or 4 years. So they owe more than the property's actually worth, even with appreciation. So we buy that debt at a big discount. If the bank agrees to our price, we then become the bank. And then we have the same rights to work out with the homeowner. Like, listen, hey, thanks for not paying ABC Bank, Josh, but you got to pay me. And I know you haven't paid in 2-3 years or 12 months or whatever. It's usually 6 months or greater is what we target. Can you start paying again? Can you get back on the right track? If yes, great. Can you bring a little bit extra to the game? If you can do that to get caught back up, great. Do that for 12 months, and then we'll remodify, recalibrate your loan to forgive anything you're over encumbered on, or adjust your rates if you got a higher interest rate, stuff like that. The whole goal of what we do is really not to own the property. It's actually just to own the debt. I'm basically.
I was going to ask you that. What was your best case scenario? So you prefer to stay in just collecting the money?
Oh man, if I can get a borrower back on track and they bring some skin in the game and they pay monthly, and I don't have to pay attorney fees to foreclose, I don't have to do rehab costs. If I bought it at 57 cents on the dollar, and after 12 months of on-time payments, I could sell that note at 85, 90, 95% of what's owed or value, and cash out without having to do any rehabs, with any sales, paying any commissions or anything like that. And
that's like a beautiful model.
That's why banks are so big. They understand borrowing cheap money, and they go out and make loans, and exponentially, the velocity of capital. That's why banks are always trying to make loans every month. They're trying to go out and leverage it, not make, they lend money at 1% and taking in at 1% and then lending out 5%. They're not making 4%. They're making 400% on their money. And
give me an education there. Why? It sounds like you really understand that space. Clearly you do. Will you give me an education? I'd love to understand that in better depth. How do they, because if you would have asked me, I'd have said, you put $1 million in their bank, they pay you 0.3%, and they're lending it to me at 3%, and they get the VIG, and they just have so many people that do that it allows them to pay their bills. But that sounds like a very amateur maybe not amateurs, not the right way, but there's a much more complicated way where they're making more money.
Well, that's where it comes down to, is they're making exponential difference between what they're paying out at 0.01% and then, charging 1%. Even in the mortgages, they're paying, let's look at this, a CD, a certificate of disappointment, as we like to say, making 0.01%.
That's a great term.
Okay. Even if they're lending it out 1%, they're making 10 times what they're paying out. That's ridiculous. And that's just on that. Now, if they're lending out in credit cards, making 18, 19%.
Oh, yeah, that's a different story.
But that's the same thing. They're arbitraging that funds. This is why banks want to be in the lending business, not in the property business. If a bank has to take a property back, it's actually a non-performing asset to them, because now they've got to fix it up. Now it's not generating any type of income.
Right.
This is the one thing to keep in mind. This is why banks aren't in the rental business. They don't want to deal with the manpower. This is what I like about being in the note business, is nobody calls the bank at 2:00 in the morning when the AC goes out in the middle of the summer. Nobody calls the bank when little Timmy flushes his rubber ducky down the toilet and it's flowing. You know what I mean?
Or little Jagger the other day.
Yeah.
That's my son.
And that's there's advantages and disadvantages to each one. But what we like is fact that in the note business, we're seeing deals usually 6 to 12 months ahead of when it hits in the MLS or hits traditional investors out there, because we're dealing with the debt and we've got some time to buy. And depending on where we're buying at, like I'll give you an example. We love Florida, love God's waiting room, as I like to call it. Okay.
God's waiting room.
It takes about a year to foreclose there. So if we buy it 6 months in default, great. It's still 6 months before anybody would see it as a traditional REO. And often that time we'll have worked out that loan, got the borrower back on track, and they're performing at this point now that we just retain for cash flow without any of the crazy overhead. Or if we do, hey, we'll give the borrower some money to walk, and then it becomes a REO, our own asset that we could sell on the open market, keep it as a rental, or do whatever we want with it at that point.
So how much do you have to buy? Like
That's a great question.
Here, there's quite a few questions here, because as a newbie sitting here understanding your game, I'm actually experiencing probably what it sounds like or what it feels like for someone that is experiencing me talk about my game, and then they want to slow me down and go, wait, okay. And I'm over here going, it's easy. You just buy a house, you fix it up, you sell it. And you do 130 of them a year.
Right.
But so I want to ask good questions. One, how much money do you have to? Because if you're holding these, you almost have to have an unlimited amount, not unlimited, but a ton of money to be able to tap back into to buy another round. Do you recycle it? Do you reuse the same capital? And then is there a minimum? Like, can I come in with $1 million and buy these things, or do I need to have $10 million?
Let me clarify all. These are really great questions. So first and foremost, yes, you can buy one-off notes, but you can't go buy a one-off note from Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, Citibank. The bigger institutions, it's not worth their time to sell a one-off note.
Sure.
They want you to buy a $50 million portfolio.
Wow.
Okay, that's fine. There's a lot of other individual lenders, REITs, portfolio lenders out there who have originated loans over the last forever that have stuff on their books that they're looking to get rid of. There's other REITs that have originated notes and then turn them into a portfolio that'll sell a one-off note. Like I said, this portfolio of 231 notes in 25, 30 states, I made a bunch of offers, 48 plus. I could have just made one if I liked the asset on there. There was 3 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It stands out to me. I made an offer on all 3 of them. There was a couple in Las Vegas, Nevada. Actually, let's run through this. This would be a really good idea. You're talking about.
I would love that. Please give me the Vegas scenario.
Okay, so this is an individual borrower. I don't remember the numbers on it, so I actually have the spreadsheet pulled up because
Is any of this recent, relevant, like today, or this past?
This is like literally bid submitted last night at 5:00 p.m.
I love it. Please tell me.
Okay, so it's my Excel's getting warm here, but borrowers behind. We get this tape in, and these borrowers haven't made a payment anywhere from 6 months to 6 years. Okay, here we go. This house, it's over on Timberhorn Court in Las Vegas, 89147. Okay.
Okay, I know that zip code.
Yeah, borrower hasn't made a payment since May of last year. So they're literally 17 months behind. Their full payoff is 338. It's occupied, single family home. The BPO came in at roughly around 399. Okay. We made an offering at 200 grand on that yesterday. They haven't made a payment 17 months. We made an offer at 200. The value is $399. I'm not going to bid really more than 70% of what's owed on that note. Now, there's equity, according to what our online value shows. There's roughly about $50,000 worth of equity, which we all know that can go here and there depending on the market. But
Right.
we really believe that the value is at that 399 mark. So if we get it at 200, even we get it at say 275, it's still a home run for us because we can modify the interest rate on this thing the borrower's paying. Hang on, I can pull that over. Do I have that up here? I don't have that on here right now. It's on a different spreadsheet. But the loan was originated back in 2015. So it's not going to be a really low interest rate for the most part.
5%, 4.5%, 5%.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a government-backed loan, so it's not. The lender had done a forbearance agreement, but it wasn't required like the government-backed loans are.
Right. Right.
So if we buy this at we'll just say they counter back at 250. We'll buy it at 250. We'll reach out to the borrower and say, hey, let's either pay us or we'll start the foreclosure process. If they won't pay us, they could list the property for sale and move out of it, and we get paid off in full at the auction. Or if they sell it off, we get our full payoff at the 338. So it turns into an $80,000 profit for us without us having to foreclose or rehab the property.
These are unbelievable margins. It's like making me salivate. I mean, this is. So how big of a package? Do you mind? And I don't want to dig into your. Okay. So let's just say focus on this Vegas one, because I remember these tapes back in the day, and you'd get a tape, and there'd be 10 in Vegas and 64 in Oklahoma. Yeah. It's like I don't want anything in Oklahoma. Well, you got to buy both. So
that's different now. If you don't, okay. It's not. Don't get me wrong. There are some banks that want you to buy it all. You just don't buy those. More banks realize that there's plenty of investors in other areas that could buy onesie-twosies. Now, I buy in about 30 states. So my offer to buy a bigger portfolio versus just one-off in Vegas actually adds value. I've got a bunch in Ohio I'm buying that are like worth $50,000. I'm going to hopefully pick up for somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000 that were part of that bid too. So if I make a bid at 48, my bid stands out stronger because then the seller's only dealing with one investor versus 48 investors. But that's the beautiful thing about the note business is there's a lot. It's a smaller market than your fix and flippers or your landlords. So a lot of times, like I've got 5 of my students that co-bid on some assets. They submitted individual offers that we attached to our bid. So it's kind of like we're buying in bulk. They get a bulk discount versus trying to go out and buy the best asset and paying through the nose. So you can buy one-off notes. The more you buy, usually the better discount, the stronger the bid is. Who knows what the seller is going to come back? They gave us some rough pricing estimates, but the thing I love about notes is that I don't usually pay over 70% of value. It's just not worth it. At that point, it makes more sense to go buy an REO or chase down on the MLS. Kind of like what your strategies are sharing on my show. You know what I mean? I
want to bang on you a little bit more on this Vegas home. So was that one house in Las Vegas? Yep. Okay, that wasn't a part of a bigger package.
It's part of 231 assets that were sent to me that I could cherry pick from.
And then you only got one in Vegas.
There was only one in Vegas.
Interesting. Okay.
And then there was 25 in Connecticut, which I didn't like. There was 38 in Florida, which we made offers on 15 in Florida. Like I said, I love God's waiting room down that neck of the woods.
I love the term.
And my biggest goal is I don't want to do rehabs because that's not a use of my time.
Headache. Yeah,
it is a
headache. Pain in the ass of flipping. Selling's easy, buying's easy. It's a construction.
Yes. Exactly.
Man, you really So where do you get the money?
So we raise private capital from investors out there. We do a big marketing push to self-directed IRA investors that will fund our individual deal. We've got a fund that will be up and running by the end of the year. We're excited about that.
Do you want to plug it, or does it help you to plug it?
It's not ready yet. I can't plug it yet until we get ready with it. But thanks, though. When it is, I'll come back to it. We can replug it or whatever.
All right.
What I'm getting at was there's a lot of people out there that have IRA accounts that aren't doing anything. So they're making zero. They can't buy anything in California. They can't buy anything in Vegas individually because they only got 50 or 100 grand sitting there. And so we use a lot of other people's money to borrow it, give them a decent return, 6 to 8% passively. We go buy the asset. We either get it back over making payments. And part of our structure is when we buy, if we're going to keep it in a cash flow, it's got to bring in at least a 12% or greater ROI in the cash flow. Otherwise, it's not worth it to us. Otherwise, it makes more sense for us to foreclose and go there. And this is also why we chase occupied assets versus vacant assets a lot of cases. We have the more opportunities to get the borrowers back on track. If it's vacant, doesn't mean we won't buy it if it's an area we like, but if it's been vacant for more than 6 months, you know what happens. The air conditioner walks off, the copper goblins show up. If it's in a cold market like Ohio or Michigan, you have now an interior water feature. It turns into an ice sculpture. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff.
All right, we all know adulting is hard. You know what shouldn't be hard? Buying a house. Robert Coomer has helped us and our friends buy and refinance houses for the past 15 years. Every time we work with him, we know we're getting the best service possible and that the person on the other end of that phone call has a smile on their face. And that leaves a smile on ours. Call Robert Coomer. He does all the heavy lifting for you so you can worry about more important things like what kind of wine pairs with your leftover pizza. But seriously, give him and his team a call at 702-850-2000. You won't regret it.
So, Scott, man, I'd love if you come across vacant stuff in Vegas, I would shoot it my way, and then I could tell you what to pay for it. You buy it, you peel it off. We'll buy it from you, at
we make it a win-win.
We can make so much money together.
And that's the thing. It all comes down to, this is one of the things we teach our students, like, hey, find somebody who's an active investor, really knows their market. Because you don't have to be. If I was in Austin, I've seen maybe 10 notes in Austin in the last 10 years. This is why I buy outside of Texas a lot of times, because Texas is a fast foreclosure state. So everything's overpriced here. The banks know it's a faster foreclosure state. So I like targeting states that have a longer foreclosure process than the Lone Star state. Yeah, and we usually, that doesn't mean if I see something that makes sense in Texas, I'll buy. But I've been buying in Florida, which had a year plus foreclosure rate. I don't mind it because that means I'm going to buy at a bigger discount. And it may never go to foreclosure because I'm going to end up working out and working with that bar to get back on track, give them some time to get back on their feet. And I'm not on the hook for the full $400,000 in debt. I'm only on the hook for $200,000, so I'm a lot more flexible in working out the payment plans.
Really, I mean, it's quite impressive, the model. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of outs, there's a lot of room for error because you buy it at such a discount that the mistakes can be made, things that don't have to go your way, and you don't get smoked. Flipping, I think. It's at this point, there's so much competition, specifically in Vegas. Maybe there's other markets that are a little looser. We've really got to be precise and accurate. And, our margins, we are razor thin, and that's why we got to do so many of them. And we have years like this year that were outrageous and, shocking. And then you've got, regular life. But so what I kind of want to do is you keep saying you have students. So did you build a business around teaching people this model as well?
Well, I started doing this back in 2008. All right. When I stopped my fix and flipping business. I sold my last rental and I just started buying notes. I mean, I bought
So you don't own any rental property? You don't own any real estate? You're a bank.
Real estate. I do. There's stuff that we take back, that we foreclose and we take back. Yeah. There's other assets, like we bought a portfolio of contract for deeds from a couple funds. So we've got a portfolio performing contract for deeds where my entity is the owner. So yeah, I own real estate, but I prefer to own the note, prefer to be with a bank on that.
I would imagine, because all we're owning real estate for is the cash flow.
That, and also the depreciation, the write-offs, tax consequences are good there for you. But here's the thing. I started buying these notes. I started getting these lists from banks. I'll give you Capital One. They sent me a list of all their small balance commercial assets back in 2008. It was 34-page PDF. And it was, all the font was in 6-point font.
Wow.
All the stuff that they had, everywhere. San Diego, California, Vegas, Florida, Texas, all this stuff. Well, I couldn't buy it all. You know what I mean? It was so many assets. So I started seeing these deals and people understand the fix and flip. They understand the landlord mindset, but they're like, I don't understand that note game thing. So I started just sharing webinars, started sharing videos of me out talking deals, or me in my office doing whiteboard, break down the deals. I started having people like, I like the deal and I want to invest with it, but you got to teach me how you're doing it. And I'm like, that's fine. So we started teaching classes a couple years into it, and that's blown up. I was the educator of the year a couple times. We've helped thousands of people. That's the biggest thing, is that, I love it. I'm buying for myself first and foremost. We like teaching people how to do it, but a lot of people, they get in the education side, that's all they do. That's never been the case. It's always about, we close notes, not we teach notes, is my company.
Sure.
I
love that.
So
yeah.
We're constantly buying. We're constantly reviewing assets. We're still one of the best ways to find the people that have these assets is contacting the internal departments at banks. I mean, you're not going to walk into the office down the street and say, I want to buy your notes. It's a different department. It's not customer service. It's not loss mitigation. It's actually, most banks will have one of four names. You like the special assets department, or the secondary marketing department, the whole loan trading desk for REITs and insurance companies that have done a lot of stuff, or your smaller banks will have a chief credit risk officer that manages the non-performing notes. And it all comes down to how the bank is leveraged too. What's beautiful is that If a bank is FDIC insured, they have to report quarterly their earnings, their losses, their defaults. So there's a third-party source that we use called Bauer Financial that we buy a report from every quarter, where the banks, they literally send us a report, and every bank that has more than 5 branches across the country shows us how many notes and defaults that are more than 90 days late, how many are in sub-performing 30 to 89 days late, percentage of the portfolio. And so that gives us kind of the hot deals or hot banks to reach out and talk to, see what they have on their books. And, they may have 1 deal a month. They may have 1,000 deals a month. It just varies from bank to bank. You know what I mean, Josh?
So let me ask you something else. I loved what you said there, is that you don't just teach, you teach and do. You teach what you do what you're teaching. Yeah. I love that too, because I never want to teach something that I don't want to sell bullshit is probably the better thing. Because I'm organically, and I know this about myself, and I would argue you are too. You could just, the second you interact with somebody, if they have the ability to communicate, you could argue that they're a pretty good salesperson. So I could just simply sell bullshit. And I never wanted to do that. So I'm a big believer in whatever I am selling or whatever I am preaching that I'm actually doing as well. And it's a proven method. So I think that's awesome. Something that I like to talk about on my podcast is as far as flipping goes, because that's what I'm specific to, flipping and then owning rental properties, is everybody always asks me, how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you do it? And they're big believers in the mechanics of it all. They want to know the mechanics. They want to know like the step 0, 0.5, 1, 1.2, 1.5, all the way down the road. And what I tell these people is it's important to have your mind right first, because if your mind is right, then all of these objections that you're creating in your mind as to why you can't get into it, which is why you're begging me for information, because you think I'm just the key to it, when in reality there's 1,000 flip books out there. There's 1,000 flip YouTube books out. There's so much free content that doesn't need to be paid for on how to flip, but you're creating these mental barriers that are keeping you from getting into the game and thinking that I can answer them for you. Anyway, so I'm a big believer in mindset, is what I was ultimately trying to explain there. It's not just the fundamentals of how to do something. So you're extremely successful. You're teaching people how to make themselves successful. I'd love to know, is there something out there that was a pivotal moment for you, that's a good piece of advice that taught you to persevere, to be creative? Something, I don't want to speak for you. Is there a moment or something you'd want to share with your people and my people that I think could be of value?
You're always going to learn more from taking action than learning. I mean, you could be the most educated doctor, 12 years of education, PhD, but if you've never actually gone to surgery or performed anything, you're just an educated idiot. And that's the biggest thing I've gotten from my mentors is, if you're going to a workshop or you're going to a class, you're doing anything that you're learning, learn to implement that in the next 24 to 48 hours, no matter what it is.
Repeat that one more time. If you go to a class,
if you go to any type of class, workshop, seminar, conference, don't try to take it all in. Try to find 1, 2, or 3 nuggets, but then implement in 24 to 48 hours. That's the number one way that we tell people are successful, is we see them taking action immediately. Unfortunately, the education space is full of about 90% of non-doers.
Yep.
People that want to learn, but they don't want to actually roll their sleeves up to learn how to do it. I mean, it's great to watch to have a steak, but if you don't know how that steak is butchered, you can't call yourself a butcher if you've gone in there and cut it up. If that makes sense. You got to roll up your sleeves and do things. And that's the hardest thing, is people get scared of taking an action, and you're going to learn more. What do? You role play. You make some offers. You have to start doing that things. If you're worried about Z and you've never even stepped onto part A, B, or C, you're just wasting time. Yeah. And that was, I think, one of the biggest things is I had great mentors. You got to have mentors who are actually doing it and have been where you want to go and been through this shit, because they will save you a lot amount of time. But if you're asking stupid questions about, maybe not stupid questions, but repetitive questions about how do you make sausage? Well, no, you just get in there and do it. Yeah. That's the biggest thing that most people struggle with is you got to show up, you got to get off the bench, you got to get in the game and start missing shots. You're going to make mistakes. The idea of perfection does not exist. I mean, iPhones, think about this. Our iPhones, Samsung, these are version 14? If Apple had waited to make the perfect cell phone, we would never be around. They had that. If you look at the first iPhones, they were pretty shitty compared to where they're at now, right? But they got it out. They delivered the product, and then they updated as they went. And that's what real estate entrepreneurs, you get in, you got to give yourself time. You've got to market it. You got to allow those seeds to grow roots and sprout, and just stick with it and be focused. If you try to do 12 different things, you'll be a jack of all trades and a master of none. And that's really the downfall of most investors, is they try to do too many things versus just sticking that one lane and going with it. It's, and master that one lane. Once you've mastered, okay, add something else, but you got to give it time to master.
Yeah, man, that was all incredibly valuable. I mean, so that stuff gets me excited. I love hearing that. That is all so accurate and so applicable and so valuable. Man, yeah, that was really good.
Okay, guys, I'm going to take a second to talk about one of our sponsors, Desert Radiology. I know from personal experience how important early detection really is. That's why I recommend Desert Radiology. They have been serving the community for over 55 years and have convenient locations all across the valley. Not only are they a trusted radiology partner of 12 area hospitals, but they are the official imaging partner for all of the Las Vegas sports teams, like the Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, Lights, Aviators, UNLV, and the Henderson Silver Knights. To learn more, visit their website at www.desertrad.com or make an appointment at 702-759-8600.
I mean, I could just ask you a zillion questions about this stuff. So how big is the biggest package you ever bought?
Biggest package we bought was 100 and actually it was 175, but we immediately bought the same package, another 44 from the same fund. So it was basically 216 notes all across the country. We will average somewhere between, 100 to a couple hundred a year, depending on what's on the market. Last year was a little light because of the forbearance agreements and defaults and COVID. The banks weren't selling as much stuff because they were protected. But we're already seeing more in the last 6 months than we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years. And we do this not only on the residential side, but we also do it on the commercial side. And if you think about how hard commercial's been hit, there's a lot of opportunities if we know a specific asset class and know how to evaluate specific assets. It's an interesting game. It's an interesting game. Everything's a lot of the same things in marketing and reaching out to asset managers and doing stuff like that. But you never know a deal will go. We've had borrowers that we thought would get reperforming right off the bat that we ended up foreclosing on. And we bought portfolios that we thought we were going to foreclose on that with one phone call, the borrowers all wanted to get back on track and modify or reinstate. And that was a beautiful day as well, too, for you. So
I would imagine. How many notes do you own right now?
I've got a portfolio of 65 right now because we sold a lot off.
Oh, that's right. I keep thinking that you hold these. So your game is to kind of right the ship, and then you could sell these back. You could resell these okay. That's how you're keeping the money turning. Yeah,
or basically if they foreclose, then we sell the asset back, and then we'll double down. You know
Understood.
What I mean? It all depends on the money we're borrowing. So our deals are often 12 to 36 months in a lot of cases because that gives the most amount to season a note once it gets back on track. I mean, I wish they were all 90 days fix and flips, but a note business, you're a note investor, it's a longer play model versus a quick and fix and flip. If that makes sense.
Do you get more money the longer that they've been current?
Well, it adds more value to that loan. And depending on what you bought it right, you could sell it at 85, 90% of the dollar. And if depending on what that end buyer is looking for, like a lot of REITs, they're looking for 4 to 8% on an investment. And if we bought something cheap enough, I'm like, heck, we can sell it at par, sell it pretty close to par or value and stuff like that. And then even if we've got a troubled borrower in a lot of cases in some of the longer states like Illinois, if we know that the borrower is a pain in the ass, is going to be a dragged out foreclosure, it still adds value to what we paid at. So our biggest model is if we get the borrower back on track in 90 days, great. We'll keep them in there. If they don't respond to things, then we'll send it to legal to start the foreclosure, or we'll look to offload it for a 10 to 20% upcharge of what we paid for it to somebody who wants to take on that exit strategy.
I would take it.
Yeah, right.
All right. So let me ask you this. So if we go to, is there a website? Is there some? How does Josh Galindo become a student of Scott Carson?
Well, Josh, I'll send you my stuff at no charge because I like working with people like yourself. But if those out there are interested, you can always go to weclosenotes.com. That's our main that's our main website. You'll find out about our podcast, our education, some of the different deal flows that we do. We've got a ton of videos. I believe in education is great, but you got to take action.
Yeah.
So weclosenotes.com. Check out the podcast, the Note Closers Show podcast is over. We just celebrated episode 700, I think is what you were the magic number, 700 on the show.
No way. How fun is that?
Yeah.
That's incredible,
So-
man. And these are a lot of work, these podcasts. So good for you to be able to do that many of them.
Well, it's our 4th year, and I wouldn't be able to do it without production team. And I got to give kudos to your production team. Brittany's been awesome along the way. So I know she's working there, but she does a great job. And I'll tell you what, guys, if you're listening right now, do Josh and the whole Going Galindo team a big favor. Hit that subscribe button and leave a review. And leave them a 5-star review. They're kicking ass and taking names with their content. And we as podcasters, we love to get that feedback from our listeners' audience. So do that right now. They didn't pay me to do that. I'm sure the check's in the mail.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you, Scott, so much. And you could talk for days about how much it sounds like you know about this game, and we appreciate you sharing it with us. And I hope to see you again.
Sounds good, Josh. Looking forward to working for you in the future, man.
All right,
Thanks.
brother. Take care.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed the show, please rate, subscribe, and share our podcast. You can also connect with us on social media or at galindogrouprealestate.com.
Until next time, thanks again for listening.